Sessions. My name is Brooke, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about development today, but when it goes bad. So, if you've been enjoying the How Films Are Made series, one, like this, subscribe so you can see the next one, and let me know your favorite so far in the comments. I have really enjoyed these. They've been really fun, so I hope you're enjoying them. Make sure to subscribe so you see when the next episode comes out. And if you have a friend who loves movies, I would love it if you would share this with them. I would greatly appreciate that. So let's dive in. When development goes wrong. As I talked about in our deep dive, there's a lot that development impacts. Like, there's so much of the movie that gets decided within the development phase. And because of that, it can play a huge part in the film going very right or the film going very wrong. This week, we're going to talk about the film being impacted when development goes wrong. And I want to talk about what going wrong means, because that sounds really cinematic to say, right? Development goes bad. But let's define what that actually means. That just means some part of the logistics didn't work. Within the development phase, some part of how the logistics were figured out, how they were planned out, some aspect of that, there are many different aspects to it, did not pan out, did not end up working out as hoped. That can be a lot of different things. That doesn't necessarily mean the people that are in those roles making those decisions did anything bad or wrong themselves. They could have made the best decisions they could with the information they had at the time, and unforeseen things changed the scenario. There's a lot of things that can impact a production. So I don't want that to sound like it always is dependent on if somebody didn't do a good job, because that's not true. Every production has its own sweet spot of logistics it needs to work, right? Like, each movie is so different on what it needs to work. And because of that, it's a very volatile, dynamic thing figuring out the logistics. So, we're going to talk about some scenarios where it can go very, very wrong. And unfortunately, equal the movie not being as successful as it could be in many different ways. So, I want to talk about 5 different common ways that development goes wrong and falls apart some. First one I want to talk about is too many voices and maybe not a clear enough vision. So, filmmaking is a collaborative medium. There's a whole lot of people working on a film to make it happen, and a whole lot of people have to function at the same time in their each individual roles together to make it work. It is very team atmosphere based. And because of that, you can run into the idea of too many cooks in the kitchen. There can be a scenario where you're caught with too many voices making decisions, and so no clear decisions are being made. And it puts a little bit of flavor of everything in, right? Instead of if it was from one clear voice and a team working together to reach that, to make that voice heard, you have multiple voices and multiple approaches, multiple experiences, backgrounds, opinions, preferences, what have you, being thrown in the mix. And you mix it all together, for keeping with the too many cooks in the kitchen metaphor, you've got a little bit of everything in a whole lot of it, but not one through line that's consistent, not one clear tone, if that makes sense. So, this is where the end result can get muddled by lots of different opinions on what that end result should be, and trying to mix too many different things together. So, there's a little bit of a push and pull in that aspect within the industry because you've got lots of amazing creative minds coming together who are incredibly talented, who have amazing visions, but they have to work together towards a central vision. They have to all see the same vision for what they're working on. And that is hugely impactful for the success of the film. The other one I'll touch on is similar but different: development without decisions. So this can be either you're rushing through development, getting too quickly to production before you've made enough of the clear decisions that you need to make, or it can be just a continual pattern of difficulty making decisions throughout, where the goalpost keeps moving, right? Like this can be seen when there's the scenario where you're rewriting script pages for that day of shooting still. And that's where that can get muddled and end up seriously impacting the final film. And it's going to be a little bit of a toss up how that might work. Some projects might actually thrive in that creativeness, others might not. So, this can be something that can seriously impact the final product and how successful a film actually can be. The next one is the project outgrows its reality. So, imagine that budget that you planned. Imagine those resources for sets, visual effects, special effects, costume, equipment, all of those plans you made. If it starts outpacing what you can actually do. So if the scope or scale of the film outgrows what you have the resources to do, right? You're going for too lofty of shots with things that you don't have the finances to back up. Because if you can imagine huge action shot, right? That takes a lot of money for all of the resources it takes to make something like that happen. And you can also picture really intricate, detailed, heavy special effects. Whether it's practical with rigs or makeup or whatever, or it's visual effects after, like in post production, that can become too much also. Those can be really, really expensive. And so if all of that starts outgrowing the budget you set out with and the funding you actually have to back this project, that's not going to lead to a very good end result when you can't meet those realities. And that's why I said you have to see if what you want to do is even possible. Sure, if you have an endless budget for this, you could do anything, but more often than not, you don't have an endless budget. So you have to look at the reality of, well, within this budget, this is what I can do. Does that meet what I'm looking for this project? And if not, that movie isn't a bad idea at all, but it becomes unmakeable because you don't have the resources to go behind it. You try to get there at some point, but if you don't have the resources for that, you're not ready to go into production. That's where you would pause and stay in development until you do. So, that can really make or break a project too. The next one is you're waiting for the perfect moment. It's really trendy to do horrors right now. Really trendy to do horrors. And if you wait and wait and wait, or you constantly are looking for, oh no, it needs to be this now, or it needs to be that now, because that's what's trending, that's what's getting audiences. Again, you're chasing a moving goalpost. It's not going to work. And that's just not going to give you a clear way to do that. And then as you're tracing those trends, inevitably you're going to miss the window for that trend being a trend helping you. So it it's troublesome. It's difficult, and it can definitely lead to a film not working out as well. The next and last one is what would be called attachments, and there being attachment dependency, where a project is only going to be successful if this certain person is attached to it, whether it's a director, an actor. or somebody financing it. If they don't finance it, it's not going to be successful, or it can't be, we only have this avenue, whatever the scenario. If there's one specific person that the project is banking on and they don't come through, or they're holding things up in some way, or contracts or whatever holding things up in some way connected to that attachment, it can keep the film frozen in limbo. It can mean it doesn't move forward because this isn't working out. The talks aren't continuing the progress of the film, it's just being stuck. And that's why it's hard if one film is only possible if this one person is a part of it. It makes the film really fragile and susceptible to those things. So, the next part I want to talk about is what development going wrong actually means and costs. Because as a filmmaker, it can feel like it takes a lot out of you to have development go wrong, to have a project not work out. You can get burnout from constantly chasing that goalpost. You can feel less confident about what you're doing because it doesn't seem to be working out. You can also kind of be scared in your next decisions because you feel a little more uneasy with that having not worked out. And there's some difficulty with, like, well, now I just spent all of that time on that project, whatever time was spent, and it's leading to nothing, which almost can be probably the hardest part because, again, it's a creative outlet, right? Like, you are putting not just work into it. This is a work that you do because you want to. More often than not, this is work you get into because you love films, because you love the idea of making films, and wanting to do that work comes with heart in it when you're actually doing the work because you want to do the work. And so, having spent all of that time on that project, one can probably make it more difficult to walk away and say it's not going to work because you did invest all of that time and possibly money or resources. But also, it can be that much more difficult emotionally when it doesn't work out because you did put all of that into it. And, you know, it can be a lot you're putting into it in a lot of different ways. And so that gets really hard. I I know, and now I can kind of talk about some of my own personal experience with like a butterfly in this regard. That was kind of a big fear of mine, a fine line I walked where I'm like, I don't I don't want to go too far if this isn't going to work. I also don't want to give up too early. I also don't want to compromise more than I should. There's all of that balancing act that you do mentally. And I think that's why I'm so glad I took the time I did and had that perspective being given to me of like, no, give it what it deserves, make this right, because that's so important. And I I probably would have been so sad or stuck if I had not reoriented myself, gotten that perspective, and got back on track. And it really would have been a different film. I think I think there's something to be said for knowing what you have and what your goal is very, very clearly. And you can line up like, yes, this lines up with it. No, this doesn't. Or no, this just isn't going to work. And obviously, the earlier in the process you have those things answered, the better. So, if you want to see how Like a Butterfly turned out after we got through development, stay tuned to the end and I'll share details of our winter screening series we have this winter. So, with all of that in mind, some ways you can tell if a movie is going down the right path or not, if development is going right or not, is if you still have clarity in the vision, if you still have a simple, very clear way you can explain the movie, and if adjustments you make it clear or less clear and more confused. Also, if the whole process is being stopped by one detail, whatever that detail might be. Or if you don't have a clear timeline, it's vague in the futures at some point, someday, and not again clarity. And development not working out doesn't mean you shouldn't have even tried. Doesn't mean the project wasn't worth developing and looking at. And a lot of the time, you learn huge lessons during the development phase, not just for that project and, the future of that project, where you might take it, how things for the future need to be adjusted, but also for future films, for your next film. Lessons that you will take with you into those about the whole process. Sometimes development does go right. Obviously, movies get made. And when development goes right, movies move forward, and it is made. When a movie leaves development and goes into pre production, when that movie moves forward to the next part, that's called being greenlit or greenlighting a movie. When it moves from this is an idea to pre production, yes, go make that movie. And that is what we will talk about next time, what greenlighting a movie actually means. If you are interested in seeing a film that did make it through development, we're hosting winter screenings of Like a Butterfly. You can find a ticket and information in the description of this episode. Thanks for spending time with me and talking through the whole filmmaking process. I hope you will join us for a screening, and I hope you enjoy the film. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, and share this with your best friend who also loves movies. I would love to have them join the conversation. I will talk to you guys next week. Bye! The Studio Sessions is a Butterfly Entertainment production. You can keep up with all of our podcasts, YouTube videos, films, and other projects on our Instagram page. We are at Butterfly Entertainment Group. Thanks for listening.